Hello, welcome to our basics cooking class. My name is Sam, and I am going to demonstrate making some fresh pasta today. We're going to make some egg noodle. This is a really great um, pasta recipe. You can apply to many different shapes. And so we're going to go through making the dough, and then we're going to make a few different shapes with it. I was just playing around with some ravioli shape right there. But let's make the dough first. So for the pasta dough, you need some eggs. We're going to use 4 eggs, a quarter cup of olive oil, and a quarter teaspoon of salt. Now, pasta, there's different variations with the dough. You can make pasta just with eggs and flour. You can make pasta just with water and flour. Here we're making a kind of a nice, rich pasta dough using eggs and oil, um, olive oil, and then the flour. So flour, we're using this. This is a double O flour, and so the double O is a European rating. Excuse me, 1 minute. Sorry about that. I had some stuff in the wash. All right. So the double O flour is a European rating, and they rate their flours like from double O to 4, I believe. And so double O is a real fine grind. And what's neat is it's like the grind of a cake flour, but it has gluten content of regular flour, and so that helps the pasta hold together. Whereas cake flour is low gluten, and you don't get the same bind. So we're going to use 3 cups of the double O flour, and semolina is another kind of flour that's great to use in pasta. It's made from durum wheat, and it's the original wheat that was used in Italian pasta, and does grow really well in southern Italy. And the pasta doughs there are traditionally water and semolina flour. So the double O flour will give you a really nice smooth pasta. If you want to add some kind of a texture, and if you're planning on kind of drying your pasta a little bit, then a little semolina is good, and a ratio of half and half semolina flour and half double O flour can work well for that. So we're using the 3 cups of double O, and then we've got a quarter teaspoon of salt. And you'll notice I'm building this right on the countertop here. And so I'm going to create a little well. I'm going to mix that salt in a bit. And then I'm going to just go ahead and use this cup measure. And we'll make a nice big well. And the well, we want it nice and wide. It's going to accommodate 4 eggs, okay? All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and measure out my olive oil. So I've got a quarter cup of olive oil, and then crack 4 eggs right into the well. And we're using our Gwendolyn's eggs here at Basics. We have our own chickens that lay these lovely eggs. And so they're fed really nice food, all organic, and they lay beautiful eggs. All right. So there we go. We've got 4 eggs in there. And a fork is one tool you will need. So I've got my fork, and just look for the biggest fork you've got, basically. And it's nice to get in there with the big fork. And then we'll slowly add the olive oil. And I'm just kind of doing a circular upward motion and dragging in a little bit of flour at a time and adding that oil a little bit at a time till it's incorporated. Keeping that well and keeping your walls there, just working a little bit off the walls. Now, pasta in Italian means paste. And this is where, the word comes from, is we're creating a paste first, and then it will develop more dough-like, but really is a paste. And, pasta has been around for many thousands of years. The first evidence of noodles, pasta-like noodles, come from China from like 5000 BC. And then they show up in Italy with the Etruscans at about 500 BC. There is the legend of Marco Polo bringing pasta to Italy, but really pasta had been in Italy for a long, long time before Marco Polo went to China. He may have introduced some shapes that he might have found there in China. But pasta's been around a long time in Italy. But it wasn't for thousands of years after pasta was first being made that tomato sauce was introduced, and that came about with Cortez and his travels into the New World and introducing tomatoes to Italy. And even after tomatoes were introduced, people were scared to eat them for some time. So tomato sauce wasn't even introduced to pasta till the 1800s. But pasta itself has been around a long time. So here we've got the paste, right? And this is the pasta right here. And so once it gets to this sort of consistency, you can get rid of your fork. And I like to use this bench scraper. And this is a nice tool to have for making bread or pasta. And it helps just get all that flour and stuff up off your surface. And you just want to work that in. And you can just use your hands for this as well. There's a really fun YouTube channel called Pasta Grannies. And boy, the grannies, for the most part, I noticed they really just use their hands and kind of get into it. I like the scraper just because it really allows me to get all the little bits and pieces, but you can also pick those up with the dough ball itself as it becomes dough. So now you can see it's becoming a little more dough-like, and we can start to knead it a bit. And so the kneading here, I'm picking up the pieces. And if for some reason your dough is a little dry, which can happen with various size of eggs, like if your eggs are small, your dough could be a little drier. You don't have to pick up all the excess flour, but if your pasta dough is still grabbing flour, use it.
Chef Sam, we have a question for you.
Yes.
One of our wonderful viewers would like to know if the eggs have to be at room temperature.
Well, they don't have to be, and funnily enough, I was thinking about that myself today. I was like, because sometimes I do leave them, and I think it probably does help. That would be a good one to look at the science of it. I would say if you have time to have, leave your eggs at room temperature. I think it does help a bit. Um, so I'd say they don't have to be, but I think it probably is a good idea. All right. Here's just like a little sample. And here we're really just stretching. You're doing a knead and you're doing a stretch, right? So, and this pasta dough is a little stiffer than bread dough. So don't be surprised if it's a little bit hard to knead. It's a good exercise.
Sam,
Yes.
our viewers want to know, how come you're slapping that dough?
I'm slapping the dough to give it a little stretch. So I kind of grab the end and then I give it a slap. And that's, I don't know if I've seen anyone else do that, but I enjoy doing that. And it seems to, it works for me. And in my mind, it is, it's sort of stretching it. And I'm trying to get that stretchy feel, you know. So that's why I'm slapping it. Plus, it just sounds neat. All right. So, you know, you can do this for a bit. At least 5 minutes is a good amount, but we won't go much longer. And you want to get it so it bounces back. I mean, this dough is pretty close. Give it a little poke, bounce it back. And then you just cover it in a little bit of plastic wrap. And then you can let it rest for about half an hour. So you want to let it rest at room temperature. But you can refrigerate this overnight and use it the next day. When I'm going to, I prefer to cut my shapes and make my shapes or my noodles and then refrigerate it and then cook it the next day. If I'm doing that, it works out a little better just because after the dough is refrigerated, it can be a little bit tougher to work with, but you definitely can refrigerate your dough ball at this point. Okay. All right, and then so I have some dough that's been resting for about half an hour, and that's what I'm going to work with now. So let's see what we got.
Why do you have to rest the dough?
Well, resting, we have a question why we rest the dough. And so you'll notice the difference, like the dough that I just made is still quite stiff. When we rest the dough, it relaxes a bit and it becomes easier to work with. So that's a reason. And then as I mentioned about refrigerating your dough, if you do refrigerate, you just want to bring it out and let it get back to room temp before working with it. So let's talk a little bit about pasta shapes. You can do a lot of things just by hand. But there is the pasta machine, right? And there's this type, which is the hand crank, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate a little bit today. And then there are also types that can hook up to like your KitchenAid, which is kind of neat. If you have a KitchenAid, it's easy to use when you're alone, and it just feeds it through. You can find these in a wide price range. This is kind of a mid-range model, like $70 or so, but you can get them, I think, like from 30 to hundreds of dollars. And I've known people who have found a really nice machine like this at Goodwill, like for $6 in the box, because sometimes people are gifted these, or think they're going to get into pasta and maybe change their mind, what have you. So keep an eye out at thrift stores if you're in the market for a pasta machine. And so the main thing we're looking to do at first is we want to roll it out thin for most like long noodle shapes, and then other shapes do some other things with it. But let's look at what we can do by hand first. And generally with a pasta ball like this, I'll cut it into 8 pieces and make 8 pasta sheets, right? If I'm cutting noodles. Shapes, it's a little different. You might just take a little bit at a time or something like that. But by hand, you want to roll your pasta to about the thickness of a dime, and you should be able to see your hand through it. So it goes pretty easy, you can see. And you can stretch, and one thing to do to stretch your pasta a little more is to go ahead and wrap it around the rolling pin, and then you can kind of give it a pull. And this helps stretch it out a little more.
Got a little question for you, Chef Sam. One of our viewers was looking at the recipe on the website and wanted to know what the proportion of semolina to 00 flour would be.
Yeah, so if you're using semolina, like I usually go half and half. Once again, it depends what kind of noodle you're looking for. With the semolina, it's a little harder to work with, but it's more durable and it has that great bite, the semolina bite. So I'd say half and half, or even half OO and half semolina, or maybe 3/4 OO and 1/4 semolina, and see what you like. But half and half is a pretty good rule. All right, so another thing to look at is, you want to, if you can see your hand through the dough, you're getting there. Okay, so I'm just going to roll a cutting board over here so I can cut some stuff. Let's see what we got. And as you're working with the dough, you want to keep it covered with a towel or plastic wrap. Okay, so we can cut some noodles with this, right? And there are 600 varieties known or documented anyway of pasta shapes. Generally, like, there's thick ones and thin ones. There's spiral ones, and there's square ones like ravioli. But let's look here, and just real quick, you can cut some noodles simply by rolling your pasta dough. And then you can just cut across. So if I'm doing thinner guys, which would be like, I don't know, your linguine or what have you. And then you can do, or another, it's good to dust. And semolina is good for dusting to keep your pasta from sticking to itself, because it won't gunk up your water when you're boiling. And another way to do it is to just fold over and fold over. And this is a little bit of a looser roll. So then if you're doing like a tagliatelle, you cut it a little lighter. And then you've got noodles there. So this is a way to get a quick noodle. Okay, so that's kind of, I mean, and again, I kind of just think of them as thick and thin. Even with the pasta machine, it has a thick guy that you could call linguine or fettuccine, and then a thinner guy, which you might use in the area of like spaghetti or angel hair. And I mean, the pasta shapes, it's really regional and cultural as to what they're called and what we do with them. A lot of the shapes are driven by the sauce that's going to go on them and develop for that. And let's look at some little shapes and think about, the idea with the shape is to grab the sauce. So a lot of the shapes, we're looking at putting a groove in the dough and something like that. So along those lines, we can, if you like playing with Play-Doh, then pasta shapes are a real good time. So one shape we see a lot is orecchietti, right? And that means little ear in Italian. And that's kind of a fun one. And so for an orecchietti, you roll kind of a thick rope and then cut off some segments. And then for this, a butter knife is a good tool. And you just set that segment up and then squish it and kind of pull the knife over. And then that flattens it out into this coin-like shape. And then from here, you can form your orecchietti on your finger, on your thumb is a good spot. And there it is, a little ear. Okay, and then one more. These are pretty fun to make. You know, takes a little bit of time for me. Maybe some of you are much faster at this, but it's still satisfying. And then so we just kind of stretch it out, and there we go. There's some nice little orecchietti. Now, let's see, another one that we can do from this kind of thicker roll is like a kind of it's a gnocchi shape, and I'm not sure what this one is called otherwise, but I would call it you're putting a spiral on it, or what do you call these, a ridge. And again, it's great for catching sauce. And you just kind of go right off there. And this is a gnocchi board, and so good for making gnocchi as well. And gnocchi is a potato-based pasta. But yeah, those are neat. And then if we were to take this down to a skinnier rope, we can do some other stuff. So I'm just going to keep on rolling. And you just want to get it nice and even. And you can make up your own shapes too. Okay, so this one is kind of fun. This is like this is going to hopefully be a little bit like this will be a fusilli kind of shape. Okay, so for this you cut some longer segments, and I'm going to use a chopstick, or you could use like a skewer, a round dowel or something. And for this one, we're just going to go ahead and roll it, and it kind of flattens as you use your chopstick. You just roll it over and then slide it off. That one was a little sticky. Let's see. And it's good to give yourself a little bit of space. And there we go. And off. And then once again, you have sauce grabbing capabilities there.
So one of our viewers commented that this might take them a week to make enough pasta for their family. Do you have any hints, Chef Sam, for faster methods?
Well, that's as you might notice, I'm not a real expert at shapes, but because it would also take me weeks. So I recommend making noodles where you just cut the noodle if you don't have the machine, or get the machine, and then it goes really quick, and we'll do that in a second. I think the shapes are fun, and it takes a lot. There a lot of practice, and you get that practice because it does take a lot of little pieces of pasta to make the meal. But there is a shape I saw in a book. It's like a BB shape. So they're like this, and this is a pasta, So you can imagine how long this would take, just doing this. And so, maybe maybe pasta grannies, they have some time to do this stuff. But it's very rewarding, of course, to get that. But yeah, there's a pasta that is just those little BBs. All right, so let's see, and kind of let me try one more of these fusillis, and then we'll move on. I just got so close on this one, but well, there we go. Okay. Oh, and then another then another neat one that you can do. So there's this guy, which is kind of like a torpedo sort of thing, and this is a shape, maybe a little smaller than that, but that's right there is a pasta shape, and then we can take this to the next level. And actually, this is the fusilli. That spiral die, I'm not sure what that one's called, but this would be the fusilli. And you go just like that with your knife, and you get the spiral that way. And so you put your knife at a 45-degree angle, and you just sort of roll it across, and then you get a spiral shape. Okay. Now that one's pretty fun. And that one's pretty quick too, in relatively. But okay. So let's look at the roller, the machine. So here we go. This machine you just hook up to a countertop, or I'm going to hook it right up to this cutting board. And so we hook that up with the clamp. And then we have the cutter. And usually, like I mentioned before, there's a wide and a skinny on that. And another, it has a crank. And then another nice thing to have on hand is a pasta drying rack. And this is a really neat one, which folds up pretty small. And then you can just pop it out in. And you can also, like at home, I just have some dowels that I have a way to rig them up to my to a shelving unit that's near my kitchen sink, and I just have them hanging these long dowels, and then I throw the noodles right over those, and that works great. Um, my my father, who this is my father's pasta recipe here, and he always just took his kitchen broomstick and put it over the back of two kitchen chairs, and so he'd have just a big line of pasta like that, and that worked well for him. So anything you can kind of hang the pasta off of. These are handy though because you can have them right on your kitchen counter. Um, okay, so as I mentioned with the dough, I like to cut it into 8 pieces. And this makes a good amount of pasta, you know, at 6 servings at least. And again, we're going to leave that covered, those pieces. And then it's handy to roll your dough out a bit. And here we're going to start by making pasta sheets. And so the pasta sheet, you know, you can use right away for lasagna, and also we'll go through some ravioli stuff too. All right, so the pasta machine has settings from 0 to 10, and I usually go to about 6 is a good spot with this machine, but that, you know, that can vary with different machines. So you go through once, and then I go ahead and I fold it once, and this helps give it a little structure, a little more structure, and you can do that. And also what that does is if you have a sheet that where it starts and it's a little ragged here and there, you can fold it in and get it a little more uniform. And then you just move through progressively. That's 1. This will be 2, and you know, and so on. And then I'm going, like I mentioned, I'm going to go up to 6 because for this machine, that puts us at that spot where we're about the thickness of a dime, and we can see our hand through the pasta sheet.
Sam, Sheila would like to know how long do you need to dry and hang the pasta?
Oh, well, no time at all, really. I mean, that if you're drying it, you know, then you will just leave it and let it dry for a day or so until it gets dry. But this fresh pasta, it, you know, you can use it right away, and that's kind of desirable. You know, it's a nice fresh noodle, so I usually just use it right away. So, or I make the noodles and then refrigerate it, toss it in a little semolina flour to keep them from sticking. Okay, so we've got our sheet, right? Well, so this could be a lasagna, and then also ravioli, and a real quick ravioli method. And also real quick, you could do like cannoli with this too. You just roll it like that and kind of stick it together, and then you've got a tube, right?
Chef Sam.
Yes.
Heather would like to know, do you boil the fresh pasta sheets for lasagna or just layer them in the pan?
You boil them, and the pasta, it cooks, you know, it cooks quickly. It's about a 3 minute cook on this stuff. So yeah, I pre-boil it. Okay, and then you layer it like so, and then you can just fold over, and then you have a real quick and easy ravioli. And this is, you can fill it with anything. I just found this is a nice soft herb cheese that was hanging out, and perfect. But you can put whatever you like in there. And then you can have like a fancy, this is a fancy little ravioli guy cutter, and it gives you that ridge. And this one kind of cuts and presses at the same time. Another ravioli tool is like this, and this one you press, and then you get this sheet is a little dry, so let's get a fresher one. Anyway, you get the idea. You cut out 2 of those and then seal them up. Put your stuff in the middle, seal them up. And then this is another really great, this is one of my favorite ravioli tools. This is like an ice cube tray, and you just lay your sheet over, make a little impression, and then you can fill, lay another sheet over, and then roll a rolling pin over, and you get real, that's if you want just real uniform raviolis. And so that works kind of nice. And it's neat because you get, what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, a dozen at a time. So there's different ways for making ravioli. This method I have going right here is just really quick and easy. And it's kind of, in having non-uniform ravioli, it shows that you made them by hand. And so that's kind of cool. And of course, you can make a bunch of ravioli and freeze them on a sheet tray, and then bag them up and then pull them out whenever. Just throw them in the boiling water and cook them off when you're ready. And that's a nice thing. If you have some time to make some pasta ahead and freeze it, that's a good way to go. All right, let's do another. Ooh, I remember one more shape I wanted to show. And I'm going to go ahead and use the pasta machine to sheet it out. And this shape is like a farfalle or a bow tie, which is kind of another quicker shape that you can do by hand. And then we'll cut some noodles and we'll hang up. Yeah. Again, we're going to 5 or 6. With this machine, it's 6. And you can see we've got some good stretch on this, and that's what you want. You want it to have a little bit elastic.
Chef Lisa would like to know, how long does it last after you dry it? Should you store it in the fridge or an airtight container?
Well, I would store this in the fridge because it is still, it is an egg pasta. So, depending, yeah, I'm just not sure. I haven't really taken it that far with the drying. I usually just eat it right away. So that's a great query. I imagine after it's fully dry, like if you dried it, say, for a week or something, then it should be fine outside the refrigerator, but I really can't say for sure. I think that would be a good one to look up, and I will look it up too, because I would like to have that information. But yeah, I really just eat it usually. So I guess I'm the wrong guy to ask on that one. Okay, so for a bow tie though, you can see and this speaking of drying, right, this would be a shape you maybe would dry. Um, a lot of the dried pastas, I mean, we do see, egg noodles dried and so forth, but a lot of the traditional dried varieties of pasta are just like water and semolina flour, because that tends to get a nice hard dry easily. Um, anyway, that's the farfalle, right? You just go like a rectangle and then pinch in the middle, and you have a little bow tie. Okay.
So what's actually the difference between dry and fresh pasta?
Well, that's sort of it. Like the dry pasta came about. It came about when people were traveling a lot. It like they used dry pasta. They dried out pasta so it could go on ships often. And when kind of the exploration of the world was first happening, it was very popular to dry the pasta. So that's one reason it gained popularity is you could create a whole bunch and then feed a lot of people by drying it out. And the difference is just that you're drying it out the pasta. Spaghetti, the thinner noodles are quicker and easier to dry, so spaghetti is very popular dried pasta. But really, it's just that the difference is you're either drying it or not, and also a non-egg-based pasta dries easier than egg noodle. Okay, so let's cut some shapes or some noodles. So this is how I will make pasta a lot, because like someone said earlier, it takes forever to make the shapes, right? But with the machine, you can make a lot of noodles real quick. So there's our kind of linguine fettuccine-ish guy, or the fat noodle. And then we can do a thin noodle. Yes. So roll it out a bit, and here we can add a little semolina. It's a good idea to sort of dust your noodle so it doesn't stick. Roll it through, and then we do the fold, right, for a little extra stability. And it also gives us that the shape we're looking for, shows up the edges. Oops. Got a loose crank. Yes, but pasta and making your own pasta is just a very economical way to eat, and you do get a lot of having the egg pasta. You're getting all that good nutrition from the eggs. All right, we're gonna let's go ahead and make some nice long guys. So again, I'm just going to dust a little bit with the semolina. And heat it right down. Here we go. Some really nice thin noodles. And then from here, you sometimes see a nice nest, right, like that. That. So that's some shapes that I'm working on and some noodles, which I eat quite often because they're really easy to make. And I think that's what I've got for you tonight. If you have any more questions, please ask them. I think we're going to post a little mini video on making some pesto sauce, which is a really nice quick sauce that's great on fresh pasta. And that should be coming up soon. So keep an eye on our website for that and other videos and cooking skills. Also, you can visit our website to look at store locations. We have 5 locations, and you'll find our wonderful Gwendolyn's eggs there, and please give them a try. And thank you so much for being here. Oh, I got a question. Oh, great. This question here is, when you cook the pasta, is it much faster than typical dry? And yeah, the fresh pasta, it'll go between, it's usually about 3 to 5 minutes. So your dry pasta, what is 10, 11 minutes often. So yeah. So thank you so much for joining me this evening, and have fun making pasta and have fun eating the pasta.
Somebody would like to ask for the recipe again, Sam.
Oh yeah, sure. And then, so the recipe is 3 cups of flour, and I use the 00. You can use regular unbleached flour, it works fine. You'll just get it, it's a little, the 00 is really nice to work with, and this stuff, it's not too expensive. We have it at the basic stores. It's like $2.99 for a bag like this. So it's a good deal. It's fun to work with. It's really great for pizza dough also. I love this for pizza dough. And then semolina, you can get some semolina and add it as well. But whatever flour you use, it's 3 cups of flour. It is a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then 4 eggs. 4 eggs. And you can also you can add water if you need to. If while you're making the dough, if it's feeling a little dry, you can add water, like a teaspoon at a time, and kind of get it together, and that's just fine. Any more questions?
Also on the website.
Yeah, and the rest, yeah, excuse me, the recipe is on the website, and with other great recipes there as well.
I think I might have one last question.
Oh, good.
Can you use flour?
Whoa, well, that is a question that is very close to my heart right now. I tried gluten-free pasta making over the weekend, and it's tricky. You can, and I haven't had, I couldn't really get it. I couldn't get the texture that I really wanted. What I ended up getting, where I could make some rectangular noodles, I got it through the press all right, but once I tried starting to manipulate it, it fell apart a bit for me. What I used, I found a recipe, and it used a little bit of xanthan gum, and it was a similar recipe to this otherwise, but there are ways to do it, and I'm working on that. And maybe if I come up with a good one, I'll present that or put the recipe up on our website. But yeah, one of my daughters is gluten intolerant, and I love making pasta. So I was like, boy, I'm going to figure out a way to do this, and I'm working on it. But yeah, it is possible. I used Bob's 1-to-1 this first go at it. I think rice flour might be a good tool there. You know, rice noodles are work great. It's just rice and water. But I know there's a technique in there. I think for me right now, the egg is a good way to bind everything together with gluten-free stuff. But yeah, it's possible, and they tasted good. And I did use a bit of rice flour as well, and it had a nice texture to it. Alrighty. Well,
One more question, Chef, and I'm gonna let you go. We have so many great questions.
Okay, good.
Do you have to alter proportions if you want to make something like spinach fettuccine?
Alter proportions. You know, you can you can use these same proportions. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I did want to mention, you know, colored pastas, they're a lot of fun, right? And you can use like beet or spinach. So spinach, you cook off a little bit of spinach, and so you have like 3/4 of a cup, say, and you want to drain it really good, chop it up really good and well, and put it into your well when you're mixing the eggs and olive oil and stuff. And what you might end up doing is adding a little bit more flour. You know, you just want to get it to that workable spot. So once again, if you might find you need to make adjustments as far as the moisture goes, because your eggs can vary in size. So either if you have giant eggs, you might have to add a little more flour. Adding spinach will inherently, it will add a little more moisture, so you might add a little more flour. So once you get a feel for where the dough, works well, you'll just kind of make those adjustments naturally. And as I mentioned before, you can add water as you're working this dough, or mixing it, if it's feeling a little dry, or add a little extra flour if it's feeling a little bit wet.
Heather is suggesting peas as well.
Peas would make a neat green color too. Yeah, that'd be a good one. Again, you just want to grind them up pretty good, and then knead them, or mix them right into your dough. Yeah. Saffron is another one. Get like a nice golden pasta. Let's see. Wait, oh, I could do this. I guess. Some of these. So here's how this guy works. I'll just do a little section. Raviolis are a lot of fun, because you can stuff them with anything, right? I was thinking of cookie cutters would be kind of a cool thing for a stuffed pasta. In Valentine's Day, do like a heart shape. Be pretty neat. Okay, so you put your filling right in there.
Well, we've got one last question, Chef Sam. When is your next class?
So the question is, when's the next class? And we have another class this week on Thursday, and we'll be doing some jambalaya. So then you just roll right over this, and it cuts it. and then you get your raviolis. And so that's a real quick and neat ravioli maker there.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us, and had a great comment about somebody who's been inspired to make a delicious sounding marsala and pasta dinner. So we're waiting for our invitation.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. And you know, manja.